Thank you for listening to the Aspiring for More podcast. I'm your host, Geramita, and it is my personal mission to give you guys the best tips and tricks of the trade from the mouths of those doing it right alongside you in the trenches, other local entrepreneurs who have been around and can give us their wisdom and insight to help us grow our businesses. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm sure it will not disappoint. This is a podcast interview that I did with Adam Willams, a small business attorney at the Williams and Jordan law firm, but he does not just keep his business knowledge in the law firm setting. He's also the co-founder of the Big Cheese food truck, as well as Socialism board game, which we'll talk about a little bit later, the different ways that he diversifies himself in business. But this man has a great pulse on the Erie community and has an awesome opinion on what needs to happen as us as entrepreneurs, as well as a city, to kind of help create a place that is beneficial as well as conducive for growing small businesses and reigniting that entrepreneurial fire that a lot of us have but might be afraid to express. So please put your earbuds in and have a great time listening to this interview that I did with Adam Willams. Hey Adam, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
So after finding out about you through your law firm, I've also come to realize all the different organizations and businesses that you're a part of. And I just, before we get into talking about those things, wanted to hear how you got into entrepreneurship and that kind of road for you.
Yeah, my story is probably pretty similar from a lot of other people in Erie, or a lot of other entrepreneurs in Erie. My parents ran their own business, so it was sort of ingrained in me from the beginning. I joke that I'm like the least employable person that I know, because growing up in a family of entrepreneurs is certainly a different way to be raised. So yeah, my parents owned their own business. They had a couple different businesses, but one, sort of consistently through all of that. And then by the time I was in my junior year of college, at that point I was at Barron, I started my own business painting houses and was able to actually cover my own tuition from that. So, I did have a job. I've had a bunch of different jobs throughout school, but after law school, I did have one job sort of in a more professional setting, big corporate type thing that lasted about a year, and it just realized it wasn't for me. So yeah, I think it's a different circumstance being raised, and to some extent a different set of circumstances and genetic circumstances that's caused me to be an entrepreneur.
Gotcha. Now, you were saying a little bit about genetic circumstances. So do you think that entrepreneurship is something you're born with, or is it kind of a learned trait that you can kind of pick up?
I think it can be both. Certainly. I mean, it's in my family bloodline, but certainly it affected the way that my parents approached things. I mean, I remember distinctly they'd go to a different gas station because it was a locally owned business. They always tried to support the local guy. And that was before that became a really popular thing. Recently you've seen things like Small Business Saturday, right? That didn't exist when I was a kid and when I was growing up. But it's, people realize how important small local businesses are now. So they try and support them. So yeah, that's just the way that I was raised. We thought about, money and work differently in my household than I think a lot of other households do.
Gotcha. And as far as so I come also from a family that's very entrepreneurial and kind of have that in me as well. But for those
condolences.
Exactly. It was a fun childhood for sure. But what would you say for people who don't have that as a background? What do you think some of the best practices are for them to learn it, or kind of get the first taste of entrepreneurship? Would it be going to college for business, or just kind of starting their own thing and running with it? What would you say would be the best way for them to start learning about it?
That's a good question. I think there's two options, and you'll get different opinions from different people on this. But one option is to set up that side hustle, right? So if you have a real job, quote unquote, if you're working a 9 to 5 or something like that, and you're able to do something on the side, that's a great way to minimize risk. So that's one option. That is not the option I would choose. I would say go all in, jump in with both feet, because it's sink or swim. You have to survive. And that could be a hell of a motivator. So yeah, I think either of those options. The side hustle is becoming a kind of a trendy thing now. I think a lot of people are doing it. I think the internet has opened that option up for a lot of people.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's funny that I say that because I have my law practice, but I have plenty of side hustles too. But yeah, I'd say if you want to be an entrepreneur, just do it. Go all in and make it happen.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that because that's kind of what I had to make that decision here recently. With I was working two jobs and trying to work on my own thing on the side with those two, and I was just realizing that being in that comfortable situation really didn't give me any fire to then build what I wanted to build.
I see way too many people. It gives them an excuse, right? I don't need to launch my business because I've got something else going on, and I think that's a shame. But it's telling too because if you need here's the other piece of advice to somebody wanting to start a business. You need to be in love with this business. I mean, you need to wake up and just be like ready to hit the ground running on something because it's so stinking hard to start a new venture. So if you're not so excited about it that you're going to wait to make it happen, it's probably not the right move for you. It's probably not the right idea for you. So you need to find something that you just can't stop thinking about if it's going to be your gig.
And I'm sure you've probably heard this from time to time from people is like the people that can't decide what they're passionate about, or they're like, I just want to do everything. What would you say to those people who feel like they're bogged down with all the different ideas that are going through their head that they want to try?
Pick one. Just pick one and freaking go for it. And it's funny because Gary Vee talks about that all the time. If you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, pick one and go for it. And either that's going to be the success because you're so committed to it, or you're going to fall on your face, and that's when you move on to the next one. And I think you'd find that a failed business venture is a better teacher than a successful business venture, especially the first time around. So just do it. Just don't make any excuses and go after it. So pick one.
Gotcha. And now after you graduated college, was your law firm the first thing you tried and went after?
No, so I went to law school and I got my MBA at the same time. And I got a job with a Big Four accounting firm, which is a really great job, and great benefits. And they were just a massive company, and I worked in Pittsburgh, but it just wasn't for me. It was a little too corporate and a little too structured, and honestly, I didn't really like being a cog in a wheel. I like being the difference maker. I don't know. There's a sports analogy in there somewhere. So yeah, I worked at the first job I had out of law school. I had done internships in a bunch of different things and tried a bunch of different things, but the first real job I had with like a retirement account and health insurance, I worked at that job for 366 days because I had to stay a year to keep my signing bonus, which is how I paid for the bar exam. So I made it a year, and then I moved back to Erie, and I clerked for a trial court judge. So basically, I got to sit in on his hearings and trials every single day and do legal research and writing for him and prepare for hearings for him. And I mean, that was killer experience. So
that's good.
That was a really good way to do things. And then actually as sort of part of that process for about a 6-month period, and again, not taking my own advice, I sort of built up the law practice on the side while I was working for the judge. And then about 6 months later, I was ready to take the plunge and go all in.
But I think kind of with that, like you're saying, is you were learning so much that it made sense to kind of stay there while building your law practice.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I got the benefits of being a county employee, and that's when my first child was born. And I joke that I feel like our health insurer paid us to have that child because the coverage was so good.
Okay. And you were saying you were in Pittsburgh originally and then came back to Erie and was a clerk. What was that deciding factor for you to want to move from Pittsburgh to Erie? Because I know me coming from Pittsburgh to Erie, a lot of people ask me like, well, why did you leave the bigger city? There's probably more opportunities to start business. Why choose Erie?
It's a couple of things. One, just in general, I like being a bigger fish in a smaller pond. And I just had no connection to Pittsburgh other than that's where I went to school, and that's where my wife at that time had worked for a little while. So I thought that I could play a little bigger role here, and things like just sitting in traffic for no reason because there's some accident in a tunnel drove me absolutely nuts. Like I did not have the patience for it. I thought it was a total waste of my time. So I had to get the heck out of there.
Gotcha.
So one reason is looking for a smaller pond. Another reason is, that the turnaround in Pittsburgh was getting started around the time that I left. This was 2010. And I grew up in Erie. I've moved away a couple times, but kept coming back. And I felt like if Erie was going to turn around, I wanted to be a part of it, and not just to be around and to witness it, but to actually be part of the engine that makes that happen. So I don't know, maybe I was a little conceited or a little young and naive to think I could make that happen. And then the third reason is the reason a lot of people move back is, we had parents who were getting up there in age, and my wife's dad had just had a heart attack, so we thought we were going to come back and spend a little more time with our aging parents. Now, of course, since then, my wife's family is mostly retired. My parents moved down to Florida, and they're doing their own thing. But yeah, that was the third reason.
Gotcha. And I was reading your article on Go Erie, and this kind of goes with your second reason for staying and wanting to be that change. And you were talking about how Erie is not the same place that it was when you were growing up, and it needs to make changes for you to want to raise your kids here. Can you just explain what you're kind of talking about as far as change that you'd like to see in Erie to move forward in the future?
Yeah, and this, I mean, you've got to be smarter than me to figure this out, but I don't know what it is about Erie, but so many people here have such bad attitudes. Like, we complain about the weather as if we're the only place where it's cold or we get some snow. And we complain about job loss and GE and the government and all these ridiculous things. And that attitude needs to change. And I think the attitude changes, ironically, maybe not ironically, when people start to become more entrepreneurial. So if in fact there is a legitimate problem out there, come up with a solution and implement it. And I think if you change to that mindset, if you start changing to this mindset of, I need to start coming up with solutions, you'll probably realize it's actually pretty great here. I can get to a beach on a great lake in like 10 or 15 minutes from my house, and I can go run around the entire peninsula, and we've got some breweries here and a lot of great things that are going on. It's actually a pretty freaking great place to live, and take advantage of the snow, get some sleds or skis or snowmobiles or whatever, and use that opportunity. So I think that's a big thing that needs to change. I don't know what can cause that. I don't know what can turn that around, but I think you're talking about the op-ed I had recently in the Times, and it's like we got so stinking comfortable with our big employers here and the great jobs that they provided, with relatively low, educational requirements. So somebody could get out of high school and walk into a really good job with really good benefits. And those jobs are leaving now. And, a lot of people just complain that they're leaving. And then there are those of us out there, and I proudly put myself in this category. I want to do something about it, right? GE cuts 500 jobs. All right, great. I'm going to go create one. Now let's go find 499 more people that want to create one job at least, right? And we can turn this ship around pretty quickly. But not a lot of people have that mindset. There's this complaint about millennials, and they're upset because they get out of college and they're not given jobs. And it's like, guess what? I'm not a millennial, and I get upset when people call me that, but I graduated around the same time as a lot of them because of the grad school thing. And it's like, there weren't a lot of good jobs out there. So I went out and created my own, and not only created my own, but now create what I think are pretty good, somewhat family sustaining jobs for other people, in some circumstances. So, I think, I don't know, there's a mindset change that needs to happen there. And I don't know how you make that happen.
Yeah. It almost seems like it needs to be like done on like an individual level with certain people, or be the example of what success looks like in a positive way, rather than, like you said, always like complaining about something here or there. And actually when you were saying that, it reminded me of a conversation I overheard in the elevator near my apartment. Was just someone from out of town who was talking to someone local and was saying how businesses would be super successful in Erie if they understood the grasp of customer service and how important that is to put on the pedestal. And it was something that kind of stuck with me because, you do see a lot of the times in Erie is people with those attitudes kind of just strutting around.
Yeah. And it's weird to me, you go to other cities and you see somebody driving a nice car and you go, wow, that person's worked hard, or that person's done something right. And in Erie, you see somebody driving a nice car and the response is, oh, what's that jerk do? Or who have they taken advantage of to get that? And it's just so backwards to me. I don't understand it, but something will change it. And I mean, listen, I'm always preaching this gospel. So if I can convert one person, I think I've done my part. But we need a lot more than that to happen.
Yeah, and hopefully that's what the whole idea of this podcast is to kind of help people who might be a little bit like afraid of stepping out and being afraid of failure or something, to kind of give them that reassurance of, hey, there's people in the area doing it, and there is actual people that have the right mindset towards it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Failure is one of my absolute favorite things, and that's I mean that I'm a proponent of failure, because that's what I wrote about in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people need to do it more often. It happens everywhere, and it happens in really big ways. So I think we need to see that happen more often around. You can learn so much from it. I've had business ventures that have not been successful, but I came out on the other side better off because of it. But here it's like, so I'm friends with John Elliott. And if you're not familiar with him, he did some economic development work around here. And a lot of it didn't work for a number of reasons, many of which weren't his fault. But the guy basically got ran out of town. And here's this like super intelligent, passionate guy who something that he was associated with didn't work out. And suddenly he's persona non grata around here. And that really frustrates me.
Yeah, it does seem that there's like a lot of people in Erie that are kind of reluctant to change, even when it comes down to like small things like parking meters or anything in the city that could potentially bring change. They're kind of dig their heels in and kind of resist that.
You're seeing that a lot right now with the art museum.
Oh, really?
Which is pretty interesting because that's playing out in a pretty public forum. But I mean, John Vanko ran that thing for 50 years, did a great job with it. But now there's a new guy, Josh Helmer, who's the executive director, and he's changing things. And it's really upsetting a lot of people. And it's like, listen, that John got it to a wonderful point, but I equate it to a person. Like, you reach 50 years old. If you haven't been to the doctor in a couple of years, it's probably time to go in for a checkup. And they're probably going to tell you to change some things if you don't have a healthy lifestyle. And that's what happened. So yeah, that's been on my mind a lot recently, but it's a common problem in Erie for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like change or die. Like you don't have, and with the internet now around, that kind of just makes the change need to happen even faster, because someone else could even change faster than you are with the tools and resources we have today.
Absolutely.
But there was something that you had said about failures that you have had that actually have helped you with other things in the future. Do you mind just describing one of those, like one of your favorite failures that have actually helped you propel in a different area later on that you didn't see?
Oh man, my favorite failure?
Yeah.
I don't know. One of the ones I really like talking about is a board game that we invented a few years ago. I was one of 3 or 4 co-founders of this thing, and it was during the presidential election, and the game was called Socialism, and it was an offshoot of Monopoly. Socialismgame.com, got to plug that. Offshoot of Monopoly, and we changed the rules and we changed the game pieces, and instead of this horribly capitalistic game, we made a socialist game that is over when everybody has the same amount of money in the bank. And it was a cute joke, and it was a lot of fun. And the awesome part about this was within a week of launching this game, we flew out to Manhattan and we were interviewed on Fox News. Like it was national news. And we had a Kickstarter and all that stuff. But the reality is we probably broke even, but I say we lost our butts on that because we've got a warehouse full of socialism games sitting around in Erie right now because it just didn't take off. And it's interesting because we had a great idea. We went out and developed it and did all the things we were supposed to do and marketed it. And it just didn't work. And I have a lot of takeaways from that, but one of them was things there were a lot of things we did well. We had a great team and things like that. But one of the things we didn't do is we developed. I mean, it was a perfect board game. Like the rules were easy to understand somewhat and full of humor, and it was great gameplay. And from a game perspective, we nailed it. But really, at the end of the day, what we were selling was a joke or a gag, right? Mm-hmm. So you're gonna send a copy of the socialism game to your horribly political brother-in-law as a joke. Gotcha. And we didn't convey that very well. We were selling a board game and we were pursuing it from a board game perspective, but what we should have been selling was this prank to some extent. So, but the game's still around. We still have the website up. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago that we launched it. But even last year, Vice Magazine called us and interviewed us. the author sat down with some members of the Democratic Socialists of America and played the game, and they got it. I mean, they laughed at themselves and laughed at the other people on the other end of the political spectrum, and that was kind of the whole idea. But yeah, there were some things that we do differently with that game if we did it over again. But we had a short time frame to get this thing launched and out to market with the campaign going on, and if you paid me $1 million to do it, I couldn't get on Fox News again, with or any national news network a week after launching a product. That's pretty unheard of. But
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we have some. It's impressive, except we got a warehouse full of these things that we've never sold. So
I see. Well, I mean,
so that was a good failure.
The concept of it seems like really good. It seems, like you were saying, it kind of seems like a on the shelf kind of game that starts a conversation when people come over to your house. And actually, after you explained it all, I thought of like a few people that I would want to send it to, which would find it hilarious. And
it's really funny because to some extent the jokes wrote themselves, right? So we were sitting in the green room at Fox's studios in Manhattan, and the guy who was on the show before us, he was like best-selling author. I don't remember his name, but like he was even saying, "Oh, you could have a game piece called Mitt Romney, who just sits in the middle of the board and does absolutely nothing." And it's like it was really funny, right? And that's the kind of humor and the jokes that people were coming up with playing the game. So I don't know. It was a good time, certainly.
Gotcha. Yeah, it seems like it would have been, because I had heard a little bit about the game from your sentence that you sent me, but didn't do too much digging into it. But I'm gonna definitely have to do that. So yeah.
I just wanted to let people know that I've done things that haven't gone real well, right? And I'm not afraid of it because we learned a lot.
Yeah, in one sense, it's almost like you would rather fail on things that aren't huge. Like, I mean, you said you broke even, or even maybe even lost a little bit, but even losing that little bit from what you gained in it was so much more worth it that it almost would count as a win.
Yeah, for sure.
But
yeah,
that's pretty funny, actually. So now the opposite of that, last time, favorite failure. What was the last moment that you actually thought like, hey, this is going to be my big moment that's going to propel me forward 10x or whatever have you? What was that last time for you?
I've never had that thought.
Okay.
I've never had the thought where I say this is the one thing I need. And it's funny because it's a line I heard, not from my dad, but somebody in his business that said, he's a commission-based salesperson, and said, I've never had a week where I made enough money, right? So there, and I know enough to know that it's a million things, small things that you do right, that sort of build the foundation. But there's never been that one thing that really propelled me, or that ever will. You can if I don't do a ton of trial work, but you can do one big trial and win and get all kinds of publicity, but that doesn't guarantee the phone's going to ring tomorrow. So I would say it's more the things that we do every single day. And I think they call that the grind, right? You gotta deal with the hustle. And I think that's more it than just that one sort of epiphany moment. Now there have been individual moments where it sort of gave me validation. I represent some of Erie County's biggest employers, and when the phone rings and they're looking for a lawyer and they were referred to me, you kind of sit back and go, okay, we've done something right here,
Exactly.
Or I have other lawyers, we're a very collegial profession, especially in Erie. And I have other lawyers that are just very complimentary of the work that I'm doing. And these are lawyers that have been around for a long time and that I really respect. And, that kind of validation is great. And you rarely get that being self-employed. Not many people are there to pat you on the back. That's one of the downsides of not having a real job. So yeah, it's nice to get some validation every now and then. And I certainly celebrate those moments, but I've never had that one thing that I thought was going to set me straight forever.
And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted. I was kind of hoping to hear from you, is because, a lot of people have those, like, well, I thought this was going to be it, and I thought this was going to be it. But there's a quote from the movie Founder about like McDonald's. I think it's on Netflix. And what they said was they are an overnight success, 20 years in the making. And it kind of like sums it up in a really eloquent way of like, it's all those small things over those 20 years that makes that one moment where you do break through like possible. And it's not
Yeah.
like just sitting around twiddling your thumbs hoping for that moment to kind of come around.
Yeah, I was never much of an athlete, but there was some coach out there who said, if you get 1% better every single day, right at the end of the year, you're 365% better than you were at the beginning. And I don't know. I wake up thinking about that. What am I going to do today that's going to make me better than yesterday?
Yeah, just that. There's actually, I forget what it was, but I just did hear a podcast about that whole lifestyle of improving 1% every day and like thinking of that one way that you can kind of hone what you do a little bit better.
Yep.
So going back to, like you were saying, the grind and the hustle, other than the law firm, and I kind of know from the research, but just letting people listening know, what are some of the other things that you do in the community, business-wise, organization-wise? Just kind of do a quick little rundown of all the things you're a part of.
Yeah, gosh. So about a year ago, my partner and I launched the Big Cheese food truck. And that was a bit of a vanity project. We knew we weren't going to make a bunch of money doing that, but it's stupid. But we thought it was going to be something good for Erie. You go to other towns and there are high-end food trucks that focus on one item and they do it really well. And we've got a couple of those in Erie. We don't have enough of them.
Yeah.
So we thought we would help sort of elevate the food truck game in Erie, and it's interesting because we did. It's totally conceded, but some of these guys have been around doing it for a long time, and if guys like Tim Grow at the Q Abides weren't out there doing their thing, we wouldn't be in the position we were. But something like Food Truck Row that the city gets behind and shuts down the parking lot in Perry Square and allows the trucks to park there, and the Downtown Partnership and the Perry Square Alliance are getting behind that. Like, that's something that didn't exist before we had our truck. So that's been a fun little project that we're kind of trying to exit now. We proved what we wanted to prove with that thing, and we're ready to move on to the next project, and hopefully somebody can take over the Big Cheese. But that one's taken up a lot of my time over the last year. And then like a lot of other lawyers, I serve on some different boards. I serve on a board for an organization called Lakeshore Community Services. They provide help to people with mental health and MH&MR issues and group homes and things like that. They're sort of a smaller version of the Barber Center, but they're still pretty big. They've got, I think, about 700 employees. So I serve on their board. I'm on the board with the Innovation Collaborative, which is obviously the group that helps entrepreneurs and people with ideas in Erie. So I've been working with them for a couple of years. And then just, day to day in the law firm, I think that our firm probably sets up more businesses than any other firm in Erie. And when people come to us with a business idea, it's fun because we have an ethical obligation to provide good legal advice. But as a lawyer, when we're able, we also have to give other types of advice. So I'm able to give advice to people about marketing and their business plan. And usually people are receptive to the input.
Now, what do you say is the biggest piece of advice that over the course of your firm, you've given to people the most?
Oh, man. The one piece of advice I like giving to people is because, I know what it's like to have to make payroll. I can keep that in mind when I'm setting fees, right? So I would rather make a little bit of money off you now and have you as a client for 10 years, as opposed to charging you as much as I possibly can right now. So for clients that come in, it's like, yes, the best legal advice is I should draft a brand new contract for you that's completely customized to your business and covers every conceivable outcome that you could have. But the business advice is that's probably not the best use of your very limited resources when you're starting a business. So come back in 6 months or a year when you're making money and we can put something together. I tell a lot of people to go find examples that they like on the internet, and we can sort of put together things that they like and things that'll work rather than completely recreating the wheel. So that's advice that I give pretty frequently, that people need to try and save some money there. I also tell a lot of people to get input from as many other experts as they can. there's, obviously those sort of informal mentor experts that you can go out and get advice from. And then there's places like the Small Business Development Center at Gannon, where you can pay, I don't know, 25 or $50 and go to what they call a first step seminar and get a lot of really good information about starting a business. So I encourage people to get as much input as possible, but don't listen to everything that everybody has to say. Eventually you need to make your own decisions and decide what you're going to do. Even starting the food truck, everybody that we talked to had some input for us. And, my partner and I are kind of arrogant jerks. So it got to the point where it's like, if one more person tells us we need to sell tomato soup, we're going to buy a can of Campbell's, and yeah, it'll be for sale for $40, right? If that's how badly you want the soup. But we'd say, soup is a crutch for substandard grilled cheese. And it was just constant. People had constant ideas and constant suggestions for that. And it can be overwhelming, especially if it's your first rodeo, so to speak, because you want to do what they're telling you to do. But I don't know, you got to kind of stick to your guns. But like I said, it never hurts to get advice, especially advice from sources that you trust. So I give a lot of that advice.
Yeah, because that's something that you'll see all the time is when you're trying to start something, you'll have all your friends who don't really know what they're talking about, feeling like their 2 cents is actually valuable to what you're trying to do. But what it does is it just ends up bogging you down and worrying about, well, do I make this person happy? This person thinks I'm going to fail. And it's, you just really gotta
you sound like a much nicer person than I am. My response to a lot of people started to be, they'd say, oh, you know what you should do on your food truck? And I'd listen and then say, you know what you should do? Start your own freaking food truck. Like if your advice is that good, go out and do it.
Exactly.
And nobody ever took that advice when I told them to do that. But you have to believe in your idea and be willing to push it forward.
Exactly. And it's almost in the sense where if you don't believe in it enough to cut out the noise, then are you really that on fire for wanting to do it? You know what I mean?
Yep. Absolutely.
So now,
yeah, there were some guys. One story I kind of like is I met with some guys recently through a program I'm involved in. I can't divulge too much, but they came to me and had what I thought was a really dumb business name. And I said, you can go and do this, but not only for like trademark and legal reasons, but also for marketing reasons. Like your name kind of sucks. So I gave them some ideas and said, look at Waze, the GPS app, and that's a cool idea. The name conveys what they're trying to do, and they spell it kind of funky, and I gave them a couple other examples like that. And then they, without talking to me first, they actually went out and changed the name to something that sort of had that I don't know, sort of internet startup Silicon Valley type of vibe to it. And I was kind of proud of that because I thought that I gave them the advice to do it, and they went out and made it happen. And it was for the better. Now people know what their business actually does, and it sounds pretty cool. So
yeah, names are huge. Some people don't understand the importance of getting the name right to convey the message.
I always laugh at, and I shouldn't laugh because I have good friends and good clients who do this, but everybody always wants to squeeze the word Erie into their business name. And that can be great for a lot of businesses. The brewery, right? Like people know that that's a brewery in Erie, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. But there are other businesses where to some extent you're limiting your growth. If you have the word business Erie in there, you can't take it to Pittsburgh or Warren or Cleveland or whatever. And I joked years ago, we need a cheese shop called the Fromagerie. And that was before we even started the grilled cheese food truck. So somebody's more than welcome to steal that idea from me. But we spent a lot of time talking about business names, and I have a lot of education and experience with marketing, so I'm always giving my input on that. But yeah, that's good free advice. Try and find a business name that doesn't include the word Erie. It's totally unnecessary.
Yeah, I took a trip to Toronto a few months back, and I noticed that I don't know if this is something they just have to do, but every company in Canada incorporates the leaf somehow into their logo. Even
that's just national pride.
Yeah, and I understand that, but it's everybody does, and it's not even really nicely it's just the leaf is stamped on it. And it's okay, well, I guess maybe the Canadians are a lot more proud of their leaf than we are of our flag, because you don't see it nearly as that much in America, I don't think.
You try and get people here. They try and get the word Erie or Presque Isle or Gem City or Niagara, or all the different words that we hear. And I think it's way too generic. I think you can do a lot better for your business picking a different name.
For sure, for sure. Now you definitely spread yourself across many different things, which is cool to see those serial entrepreneurs just going at it. But how do you keep the mindset of like building one thing and then moving on to another, if that makes sense? Like not having too much on your plate to where nothing's getting done properly, but also
Yep.
scratching that itch of wanting to start a new idea that comes into your head.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because we did so much with the food truck last year, but my law firm still grew about 30%, and we were in our 7th or 8th year of business. So part of it is I'm getting more efficient with some of the legal work, and I'm hiring more people and building a pretty good team here. And I honestly, I don't have the answer to that. I get totally freaking burnout sometimes. So it's tough to find a balance. And, not outside of the business stuff, like I have a loving wife and 2 wonderful children, and I have hobbies that I like to pursue. So yeah, things get sacrificed. But there's always going to be too much stuff to do. And you just need to prioritize. There's always urgent things. There's always fires to put out. And it's tough to balance that with things that maybe aren't as urgent, but that are still important and still have to get done. And I'm far from perfect at it, but I think we're doing a pretty good job. So yeah, I mean, part of it is, at times you have to sleep less. And at times, I can't go out in my garage and do some woodworking project or fix my car. I've got to do the other things. So, and at this point, it hasn't become a major problem, but I don't know. I'm going to keep pushing the limit until it does, I think.
Seems to be the type of life most entrepreneurs
Yeah.
tend to lead. Because I know lots of people are always, because like my imagination is way too overactive, but like I'll think of like, oh, I want to start this and then have 80 different things that I could branch off from that.
Yep.
And which is great for as far as like always wanting to reinvent yourself and go forward and move forward. But it's also that importantness of just, hey, do something well and then see where that goes before you. And that's kind of what it seems like you've been doing with your, like, how long has your law firm been around until you started a real established side hustle, not just like, hey, I do a little bit of this on the side because I enjoy it, but how long were you invested in your law firm before things started branching off?
Probably 4 or 5 years, I'm thinking.
Gotcha.
So it was a couple of years, and certainly the law firm is still not as established as we want it to be. My goal is 50% growth this year, which is pretty obnoxious for something in its 8th year of existence. But that's the goal, and I'm trying to stay focused on that. But yeah, I mean there are times that the practice of law can be really stinking stressful. And it's nice to have some projects or some hobbies on the side that I can sort of get away from it a little bit. I'm not one of those guys. No matter how hard I try, I can't spend 100 hours a week in my law firm. There are lawyers who can do that, and I commend them for it. But I don't know. I don't have something that allows me to do that. I need a little bit of balance there. So, taking time to, exercise, taking time to spend time with the family, taking time like on my own, which is especially tough with a couple little kids running around, getting out in the garage and working on a project, or taking my son out on the snowmobile. I make sure that I get a little bit of that in every week, and it helps keep me balanced. And then also having things to look forward to. I'm going out of town this weekend, actually, to a seminar on some legal practice management. But it's going to be like a 4-day weekend in San Antonio, and I'm going without my wife and kids. So that'll allow me to probably get a lot of work done uninterrupted, because I'll be out of the office and won't have a bunch of things bouncing off of me. So I'll have to take advantage of that opportunity when it presents itself. And then, we got the family vacation to Florida coming up in a few weeks. So it's another thing to look forward to, and that kind of helps keep me sane during the nights when I'm at my office till midnight.
Yeah, it seems like there's that really fine work-life balance that it's very individual to each person.
Yeah, if you're an entrepreneur, I don't think there is such a thing. I will for the rest of my life be known as a lawyer, right? Mm-hmm. There's no way to get away from that. So I don't think there is a balance. It's just my my life and my personal life are one and the same, and I have to deal with that. I think there are professions where you can have a work-life balance. I think if you have a good job with a good company, you can have that. I'm not sure it's possible if you are really truly an entrepreneur. You know, the phone is always ringing, and especially in our field, it's people only call lawyers when they have a problem, and it's usually a big problem, one of the most significant things of their life, and it's usually fairly urgent. So we've always got to be on call and ready to handle those things. So I don't think I have any balance.
Yeah, and a lot of the seasoned entrepreneurs, their businesses almost become part of their family. It becomes their child
Yep,
almost, to
absolutely.
where like it almost is like an almost all family time, because that's how you look at your business, and you're just willing to do pretty much anything that you would do for one of your children for it.
Yeah, and I mean, I grew up like that, and I have vivid memories a couple of years ago of my son being asleep on the couch in my office while I was here working, and my wife works for me part time, but doing some bookkeeping and accounting and things like that. So it's a family affair. I mean, there are Friday nights when all four of us are here eating pizza and getting work done. So that's a good way to do work and spend time with the family. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Bring them involved. Also, like you were saying with your childhood, is it had a huge impact on you. Just imagine what those kind of experiences are rubbing off on your children for those next generations of Erie entrepreneurs if they decide to stay and do that as well. But
yeah, that's been an interesting exercise because my son, he's 8, he's in second grade, and he doesn't really understand the lawyer thing or the attorney thing. He knows that I'm the boss in the office, which is funny because I hate the word boss, but he knows that. But it hit him when we started the food truck. Like he saw my partner Brock and I working on the truck and painting it and fixing it up and putting the equipment in, and he knew that like we were going to make sandwiches and we were going to sell those sandwiches for more money than we put into them. And that it was really cool to see like that epiphany. Like he got it.
yeah,
He understood, and he takes a lot of pride in that. And it's funny because my partner Brock has 5 kids, and his kids too are like, he's got a million different businesses going on, but it wasn't until we started this food truck that it was a business that these kids could understand, that it hit home, and they got it. And my son, he would help out at some of the bigger events, handing out chips or helping clean up or whatever. And he saw the work that we had to put into it, and saw, the fun that we had and the money that we made doing it. So that's been a really fun thing to share with him.
yeah, that's a huge learning experience for children to be able to be physically involved, because yeah, a lot of people who, like you said, have that quote unquote 9 to 5 job, the real job, their kids don't get to see them in action as they're actually trying to bring home the food, pay for the house. Like they actually get that one-on-one time to kind of speed up their growing up as adults, because they're actually able to see you rather than you leave at this time and then come home at this time.
Yep. Yep. And he also knows that there's a lot less that's guaranteed, right? I mean, if you want something, you got to go out and work for it and fight for it. And I don't know, it's cool to see him learn that. Maybe a little dangerous for him to learn that at such a young age, but it's cool for him to learn that.
No, it's fun to see children, because I know I have a few siblings who are very entrepreneurial. Just seeing their small businesses pop up on the side with their friends and other siblings, and it's just a fun experience to watch them kind of cut their teeth on it.
Yep. And teach. So my son and my daughter, she's an infant, she's 1.5, but we got a toy food truck last summer. And I remember there's a little chalkboard and you write the menu, and my son wrote that hot dogs were free. And I'm like, that was like, I didn't yell at him, but we had to have a very serious talk. Like, you can't give away hot dogs because it costs you money to buy them. So I said, so I bought the first one and I gave him $1 for it anyway. And once he got that dollar in his hand, he's like, okay, maybe I don't need to give this away. Like, it's kind of fun having money.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
Now, with the food truck and all the other things that you were talking about, you have different partners that are helping you out with that. How do you kind of find the right partner? Or how do you know this person would be just how do you find the right partner to help you with a particular business?
Yeah, you never will.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's like getting married. You can think you're finding the right one, but more businesses fail than marriages, and a lot of them involve partnerships. So that's the benefit of being the lawyer, is I can help prepare for that sort of business divorce situation. Too many people go into business without a good partnership agreement, addressing how they're going to handle a lot of those things. So I don't think you do know. But with the analogy to a marriage, there are things that you can do to help improve your chances of success. Not that there will ever be a guarantee there. So one thing is having a good partnership agreement, but another thing is, having clearly defined roles. You can't predict everything, but if a lot of tech companies, for example, they have sort of the tech guy and the programming guy, and then they have the other partner who's maybe more of the sales and marketing and leadership and management type guy. So I look at it as building a team. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've seen a lot of failed businesses ruin friendships and ruin families and sibling relationships and parent-child relationships. So you gotta be careful with it. But making sure you've got an exit plan is a good idea. Because that, some problems you just can't overcome, or you may find out after a couple years or a couple months that you really just don't like this person and don't want to be around them. So, there's no guarantee of success there, but I've been fortunate in the deals that I've been involved with. I don't know, maybe part of it is just dumb luck. But I most of the people that I've gone into business with, I've known and I've had a pretty long-term relationship with, and I think that helps. That can help. You can get a much better idea of the type of person that you're dealing with. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I've seen some best friends get into business together and things go south, and then they don't talk to each other, and it's a shame. And I don't always get to hear the stories of what happened, but I'm sure a lot of those things were avoidable if they opened up the line of communications a little bit better and talk things through.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of it is also just getting over the thought of having a partner. Because I know for me, it's kind of like I want to hoard my ideas in a sense, where I'm afraid, like, well, if I share it with other people, who knows what they're going to do with it, where they're going to take it. But something that I've been learning more and more is having partners actually can help you grow even faster, because they offer things that come to the table that you otherwise don't have the skill set for. But
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, growing up, my dad never had his most successful business. It was a sole proprietorship. He didn't have partners, and he was in a lot of circumstances adamantly opposed to having partners. But I mean, there's benefit to it when you're building the team, but there's a trade-off too. I mean, if you're bringing in a true partner, you may be giving away a piece of your business, and you may not want to do that. So yeah, if it's not, you talk to some different venture capital guys, and they absolutely demand that you have a partner and that you have a team and you have somebody that's sort of the yin to your yang. I'm not nearly that adamant about it. I think that one man shows, so to speak, can be quite successful. So I think it depends on the business and the type of thing that you're trying to do. But I mean, you're talking about having so many ideas and not being able to, or not taking the time to execute on one of them. Maybe you're the idea guy and you go find an operations guy who can bring one of these things to fruition and make your dream a reality.
Exactly.
So
having that person that, yeah, like you're saying, that can, because otherwise, if it's just an idea in my head, I'm not going to get anywhere with it. It might be a cool idea that I'll always hold on forever, but I might be missing that opportunity to have someone help unlock that. Now, do you think there's a way to decide whether you're better off as a sole proprietorship or you should have a partner, or is that something that's way too hard to give like a general advice on?
Yeah, it's so fact specific. It's going to be different for everybody. It really depends on the business. Like I said, I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. I don't think you always need a partner. I don't think you always need to be on your own. I think it really depends on the business and the type of person you are and who you're thinking about teaming up with. I see way too many people that are just so anxious to bring on, I want to bring on this employee, but I can't pay him, so I'm going to give him some equity in the business. Well, you're giving away a chunk of your business. You're now partners with this person. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. That a lot of people don't realize or don't consider before they make that decision. So
that's where people like you help come in, writing those agreements to keep everything in order, so you're not losing your child/business.
Totally. And I mean, sometimes it's not so much that we have this brilliant advice for you, but sometimes the lawyer's just asking the questions that you didn't even think about,
Exactly.
We can always address a situation where if you guys aren't getting along, how are we going to resolve disputes? But are we thinking about things like, well, if one of you walks out this door and gets hit by a bus, what happens with that part of the business, So that just having conversations that most people don't think to have.
Exactly. And one more question. Well, actually, two more questions, but this one more business sense, and I'm going to just give you an open-ended one for you to talk about. Is in Erie specifically, you saying you have a marketing background. What would you say the best form of advertisement for a new business would be right now in Erie?
Depending on the business. The lawyer answer is always, it depends, right? But for a lot of businesses, social media is so easy and so cheap or free.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's unbelievable the market that you can penetrate with some pretty basic social media advertising. TV commercials are great and billboards are great, but a targeted Facebook ad. I ran a targeted Facebook ad. This was years ago. GE announced a bonus for some employees, and I ran a targeted Facebook ad to GE employees and said, why don't you use some of your bonus and prepare your will, right? So it's like, you're making $1,500, go spend 300 or 400 or 500 and get a good will in place. And the response to that was unbelievable. And it cost me like $6 because at the time nobody was advertising on Facebook. So I think it's so easy. And if you're generating content, if you've got the type of business where you can be generating content, I mean, that is just such an untapped market in Erie. And we did a great job with the food truck. I mean, we had a following of probably 2,500 Facebook fans before we opened our doors for the first time. I mean, that's an easy sell. It's grilled cheese, right? Mm-hmm. But we could have done a lot more of that. Yeah, we could have done a lot more of that. Sharing pictures of the food and usually, but by the time we got into the summer and we were so busy, we were just blasting out our location. But we could have done a lot more to build the market a little bit more and share the message. So yeah, I think social media, and it's not just in Erie, it's anywhere. Mm-hmm. But what I've learned in Erie is Twitter is dead. There's nobody in Erie that's on Twitter, except for a handful of us. Facebook is great, and Instagram is surprisingly popular in Erie. I had no idea until we got into the food truck thing. It's tough on the lawyer side to capitalize on Instagram. I don't like, what am I going to do? Share pictures of really cool looking contracts? I haven't figured that piece out, but
I never know. There might be a niche for that.
There could be. I haven't figured out what it is yet, and I'm not creative or artistic enough to make it look cool. But yeah, I don't know. It blows my mind thinking about how easy social media marketing is, and I fall for it all the time. I can't tell you how much stuff I bought for Christmas from targeted ads. I like a certain type of car, so that I'm getting targeted ads with ugly Christmas sweaters with that car on it. Well, I got to buy those for my family. All sorts of stuff, like the gift wrap my face, right? You can put your headshot on gift wrap paper and look like Santa Claus. I bought rolls of that stuff because it was targeted to me. And it's like, I don't know, there's a huge market there. And that, especially if you've got a scalable business that you can sell stuff outside of Erie, God, what a huge opportunity that is. We tried with the socialism game. And it's funny now because our ads violate a lot of Facebook's standards because they think we're trying to interfere with elections. So we actually had to get some criminal background checks done and stuff like that to run paid ads now. But that's a huge opportunity.
That's funny. But yeah, I kind of asked that question a little bit selfishly because I've always known Instagram, Facebook, social media to be a great way to advertise, but you don't see many people doing that in Erie or doing it well in Erie. Yeah. And I was wondering, well, maybe there's some secret well that I haven't tapped into that makes Erie residents respond.
There are a handful of companies in Erie that are advertising outside of Erie with that. That's working. Actually, there's a number of companies doing that. So maybe you're not getting the local stuff as much, but if you're a retail business, I think there's a lot of stuff that you can do there. Or if you're sort of one of those businesses that sells a widget and ships it out, there's a lot of it's different tactics that you're going to follow. But gosh, what a huge opportunity that is. I mean, it's so easy in my opinion. And it's a shame that more people don't take advantage of it, but it just seems so easy to build a following on social media and sell your stuff. I wish more people did it.
And even for me with starting my business, it's huge being able to keep the advertisement budget so low. You're not, like you were saying before, with coming in and wanting a contract and all this stuff. And you're like, well, why don't you go out and kind of really get an idea for what your business is before you start spending money and like going into all these different endeavors. It's the same way with social media. You can really test what works, what people engage with your business. And then if you wanted to, go to other avenues and pay more money for different kind of marketing things, but you can do it very dirt cheap and kind of figure your way around it.
And you can see too what's great, the results. I mean, it's tracked, right? You see your click-through rate and how many people abandon their shopping cart and whatever. I mean, that's what's really cool to see.
Yeah, it is ridiculous the amount of analytics you can get out of certain ads that you run. But and then one last question for you to answer is, if you were sitting in a room or an auditorium full of all of the local Erie startups, what would be the one message you would want to get across to them?
It's funny because you said that, and I immediately want to revise my answer to the last question, because I said social media, and I think networking is also hugely important and easy to sell stuff. But my one piece of advice to startups in Erie, Pennsylvania, would be to think bigger. I don't care what you're doing. You're thinking too small. You're not trying to do enough. You're underselling yourself. You're pricing things too low. So be more aggressive and think bigger and think beyond, whatever you're trying to do, what would it take to double that? And I think if you went through and thought through that, you might be surprised at the answer. And beyond that, triple or quadruple what you're doing. It may not take much more than you're doing now, but just don't settle and don't get complacent, and try and do bigger things.
That's great stuff. And I was going to end it on there, but when you said networking, it did make me want to ask, what do you think, one, the benefits in Erie for networking is it better than other places, and what are the best ways to get into network? Because for me, it was hard to find places to network in Erie because not many people are online promoting it and whatnot. So what are some places to get connected to start networking, and some of the benefits that Erie may have over other places?
Yeah, so it's funny because I don't know what people consider networking, but for me, it's going out and doing things with people. That's all it is. And as long as they know you do what you do, they'll think of you when they have that need. So yeah, I mean, certainly for me, I love going to the Erie Club and interacting with big shot business owners and their potential clients. And I get clients out of that, but I get clients out of my kids' soccer games too, because just building trust with people and having conversations with them, it's incredible how easy that is. I did it today with I met a guy at a lunch through the Chamber of Commerce, and we exchanged business cards, and it's like, I know when I need that service or product, I'm calling that dude.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's you can be targeted with your networking, and you can be one of those guys who goes to every event and hands your business card out to every single person. That's not the way to do it. What I tell, and this is the advice I give some of the younger people that work for me. If you go out to a happy hour or a cocktail party and you meet one or two people and you exchange business cards, that's pretty successful evening if you've made a connection with them. We just picked up a client. It's my employee's hairdresser, right? So he's getting his hair cut, talking about what he does for a living, and then she had the need and gave us the call. And that cost us $0 marketing dollars. So we like that stuff.
Yeah, and word of mouth in Erie seems to be huge. Everybody knows everybody, and if you get in with the people, get on people's good side, it doesn't seem that hard to grow word of mouth in Erie. But
yeah,
I like
if you're good at what you do. Yeah, got to be good at what you do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get bad word of mouth really quickly, just as easily.
Yeah.
But I like your perspective of keeping it natural and not just looking for a networking event to go to, because a lot of the times people are just going for a lot of selfish reasons to which is okay because they're trying to advance their business, but it's not that open dialogue of, hey, this is just what I do. If I can help it, people are taking that more than just trying to take from other people.
Yeah.
But no, that was really good. But yeah, thank you, Adam, for this time that you've given me. And I think there's a lot of wisdom that a lot of Erie entrepreneurs can hopefully grow from. And there's probably some people that are going to learn from it. Hopefully that's the goal. But
if not, I have a lot more knowledge to impart. So just give me another episode.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2 if nobody seems to actually get anything from this.
Perfect.
Awesome. You have a great night and God bless.
Cool. All right. Thanks, man.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview that I did with Adam Willams. There was so much there to just unpack that you could listen to it over a few times and still get some stuff out of it. If you guys have any small business law needs or questions, if you want to reach out to Adam, you can contact him through his website at eriebusinesslaw.com. Again, that is eriebusinesslaw.com. Or you can email him at adam@williamsandjordan.com. Again, as always, thank you guys for listening, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.